What is going on, guys? I hope everybody is having a great and fantastic weekend. Hopefully, everybody hears me. Everything's working good. We've got a really good show for you guys tonight. We're going to talk about looking for relic sites, what we look for. We're going to talk about setting up the Expeditus 2 for relic hunting, and then we're also going to show some finds that were submitted by some of our subscribers. So we got a lot going on. And with that being said, I've also got my very special friend, Mr. Michael Coley. And Michael Coley is getting ready to join in with us. So we're going to add Michael to the stream. Hello, Michael. How's it going, buddy?
It's going good. Another hot day in North Carolina.
Yeah, and it's a hot day here in South Carolina, too. What's up, Lance? Glad to have you in here. We got a couple of comments, some people shouting out. But we are super excited to be here. We're trying to continue every Friday night at 7:30. Share with your friends. Get as many people in here as you can. Like and subscribe if you can to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And I'm glad to have Michael in here with me tonight, NC Relic Hunter. And we're going to be talking about some pretty cool things tonight, some things that I think a lot of you are really interested in. Maybe some things you didn't know, maybe some things you did know. So because Michael and I don't know everything. So again, remember, this channel is about sharing information and helping each other out. So that's what we're going to try to do tonight with some of that as well. Michael, how was your week this week? I know it's been hot in North Carolina. Did you get out and do any detecting? Were you able to play with your metal detector or do anything this week?
I just, play with it a little bit, my test card, but as far as getting out and hunting, I didn't get out much. It seems like every afternoon a thunderstorm comes up here. So, but yeah, it's been a long week at work. So I'm glad it's Friday. So
well, Michael is a very experienced detector. He and I do a lot of different things, but we do a lot of things that are very similar too, as far as finding sites. Thank you, Carson Chris, for the donation. I greatly appreciate it. Carson Chris, great supporter of the channel. Thank you so much for being here tonight and being a great supporter of the channel. Remember, all donations, any super thanks, super chats, all of that stuff goes straight back into our channel to try to help us get better. And we lost Michael for a brief second, but he's back to help us get better and to bring you guys some really fantastic content, which we do have some content coming in the future. Of course, I've started back work, which is going to put a damper on some of my hunting adventures, but I am going to try to still be here every Friday night, 7:30, with a show for you guys to bring you some information, share with you some things, and just hang out and have a good time. That's what the show's really about. And always glad to have each and every one of you. I'm going to give some shout outs real quick. Of course, I've already started with Carson Chris, but we're going to go through and we're going to give everybody that's in here tonight a shout out to Detector 2 Guns. Glad to have you in the house from Florida. Sniff it out always. He's from southwestern Pennsylvania. Tony Maston, glad to have you in here, Tony. I think it's the first time we've seen you, but he's from Virginia. Glad to have you in here. Tech Ridge Digger from the Bayou Country. Glad to have you in here tonight. Of course, always my main man, Surfside Dan, is in the house. Always glad to have Surfside Dan. The Tin Man coming to us from Kiowa Island, South Carolina, my home state. So glad to have you in here as well. Joe Dirt, always glad to have you in here, Joe Dirt. James Letner. That's a beautiful profile pic you got there too, James. So glad to see you. David Moss, glad to have you in here, David. Don't tread on me, metal detecting. Always in here with us. Super excited to have him in here. Lance, always a great support of the channel. Thank you, Lance. Carson Chris, which I just mentioned. And happy Friday to you, Carson Chris. Glad to have you in here. Tallulah Barkhead. It's Damian Thorne, and we've got a special find that Damian shared with me, and I'm going to tell you about that find in just a few minutes. So, Damian, we are super excited to have you in here tonight. Chris, always hello. Thank you. Glad to have you in here, Chris. Dwayne Cron, always a great supporter of the channel. BK, Glad to have you in here, BK. BK, another guy from South Carolina. Love having BK in here. NC Rocket, good evening. How's it going, NC Rocket? Glad to have you. Bobby Short, always a great supporter of the channel. My main man, Stink-Ass Cat, glad to have you in here tonight. We got some good information we're going to share tonight, so stay tuned. Thank you, Stink-Ass Cat, for the donation. We really appreciate that. And again, all of this goes straight back to our channel to help support you guys and bring you some of the best information that we can, and bring it to you in a good quality way. So again, this stuff isn't cheap. For us to put together a good live stream, put together cameras, all the other stuff that we do, the metal detectors, going on these trips and so on. So all this stuff is always greatly appreciated. And of course, Sonny Coley, glad to have you in here, Sonny. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone. We got 28 people in here. Hopefully we'll get some more as the evening goes on. And with that being said, I want to share with you guys one of our finds that was submitted by one of our subscribers to our channel, Mr. Damian Thorne, who's actually in South Carolina. He hunts down in Charleston, and he was using my beach program. Michael, remember we talked about the beach program? I think we did that last week, didn't we?
Right. I think that's right.
So the beach program that I've been using has been based off of Dive, and I was using the high square, and then I was also using full tones. And it was really, really, really giving me these crystal clear sounds on some of these targets on the beach. I really like the way that sounds. I was running 40 kilohertz max frequency, and I really enjoyed that setup on the beach. So Damian decided that he was going to use that same program. So let's share with you guys what Damian found down in Charleston on the beach using my beach program. So, and here it is. Damian got a pair of nice Colonial cufflinks. So congratulations to Damian on those nice pair of cufflinks. I love finding those. When you find those are special, especially if they're silver. Michael, you ever found a pair of cufflinks?
I found one. It was a monograph cufflink. I hadn't found a pair, but I found one. It was a really nice one. But
were they silver, Michael? The ones that you found?
No, they weren't silver. I think they were gold plated.
Gold plated. So Damian found these down in Charleston on the beach. Those are awesome. Those are awesome. And Damian found those using my beach program, and he was so excited. He shared it on my Facebook page, and then he sent me the picture of them, and I was just blown away, which I know that dive program is really deep. Some of you might even want to try it. If you get a real trashy park and you want to try something that's really deep, you might even want to run that dive program even on the land just to see how it performs. But that dive program is extremely deep, running full tones, 40 kilohertz, high square, and Damian had a lot of success. So we're super excited for Damian. We're glad that we were able to help Damian in finding these cufflinks. And that is an awesome, awesome, awesome find. So, Yes. And again, a lot of people, Damian, I know you're on here. Stink-Ass Cat said those are awesome. NC Rocket says those are awesome. And Don't Tread on Me says nice save. So again, nice pair of cufflinks. We're super excited to share those. Detector 2 Guns, thank you so much. Appreciate that, Detector 2 Guns. Thank you for your support. Awesome supporter of the channel. Thank you guys so much. So again, yes, very cool find. Tim Man says very cool find. I know that I've only dug one pair of cufflinks. So when you dig those are always very special. And I know Damian was super excited to find those. And of course, everybody's chiming in too. So Michael, what do you think about those cufflinks?
That's awesome find, especially on the beach.
I know.
You think beach hunting, you don't think cufflinks, Colonial cufflinks, but in Charleston, you never know.
Yeah, when you're down in Charleston, you never know. Yeah. And some of those sea islands, if he was hunting in those areas, those can be some really killer places to find a super find like this. And I know, yes, especially on the beach. And of course, I know Damien was extremely excited. I've actually hunted with Damien. I think Michael might have hunted with Damien down in Charleston a couple of times. But yeah, Damien's super nice guy. He's been metal detecting for a good long time. He loves the Deus 2. And again, this is his results with the beach program using dive. So we're super excited that Damien found those cufflinks. They're really, really cool. Yeah, Bobby Short says that's a wild find. NC Rocket says that he will be in North Myrtle Beach on the 13th for the whole week. Hope I find some cool stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to be found on the beach. Go check out my dive program that I shared with everybody. I believe I shared that last week on the live stream. Go check that out. Try it out and see how it works for you. I think you'll like the way it sounds. Michael, didn't you like the way that beach program sounded?
Yeah, I like the full tones with the high square. It sounds really good. And that's a new option with the dive program, right? You couldn't run the full tones with it, right?
Right.
And
Yeah. With this new update and with that being able to run that high square and being able to use full tones, I think it really makes a difference in that
right,
program. And the other thing is you'll find, and I think that Damien had a lot of success with that program because running it, being able to set that max frequency at 40 kilohertz, I think that was the key thing because those cufflinks are not big. Y'all can tell. You can look at how small those things are on the tips of his fingers. So I think being able to set that max frequency and being able to run it at that 40 kilohertz definitely can help you hit some of those smaller targets that you might have missed using anything else. So again, I think that's a great setup. NC Rocket says that he's still using the 800. Haven't upgraded yet. The 800 is a great machine, and Michael and I both use MindLab Equinox machines too, and they are awesome machines. So even if you haven't upgraded to a new machine or a different machine, the 800 still can get the job done on the beach. So very, very good machine. MindLab makes a great machine in that MindLab Equinox 800. And again, I found a lot of cool stuff, and I know Michael has found a lot of cool stuff too. BK says, wow, that is an amazing find from the beach. I'm wowed by finding an occasional wheat scent. Sometimes a wheat scent is all that's out there. You got to swing over it. Again, Damien definitely had a great find with these cufflinks. So super, super, super excited for Damien and glad that we were able to assist Damien in helping him find that. So Detector 2 Guns, NC Rocket, the Equinox 800 is a good detector, just like we just said. MindLab machines, still great machines. The Equinox 800, I've found so much good stuff with the Equinox 800. I can't tell you. It's just unbelievable how much stuff that I found with that Equinox 800. But I love my Deus 2. Deus 2 has found me some incredible things too. But the Equinox 800 definitely still holds its own for a lot of people, and a lot of people have a lot of success with the Equinox 800. So super excited to share those finds. Michael and I, though, the main thing about our program tonight was to talk about finding sites. And everybody has different ways that they go about getting sites and finding sites. So that was going to be one of the main focuses of our show tonight, was to talk about how we actually find sites. So that's where the focus is going to be tonight. So I'm going to let Michael sort of start off. Michael, tell us what you go through when you go to looking for a site. What are some of the basic things that you start to look for?
Well, a lot of times I'll start out looking, at some old maps, which you can get. I know I'm in North Carolina, so they have we have a pretty good collection of maps at the UNC library.
Okay.
Online, it's UNC library online. But anyway, and also a good resource is, if you have some historical sites in your area, some of the local authors, they write, it's more, I guess, more in depth history on the area, than a lot of the books you can find. So, if there's a bookstore, a historical site in an area that you're looking to hunt, that book might have some more information than some of the books you might get off online, So,
Right.
but
So Michael does a good bit of research, as do I. And real quick, I wanted to recognize Joe Dirt. Joe Dirt, thank you for the contribution. We greatly appreciate that so much, and thank you for being here tonight. And hopefully, you'll get some information, Joe Dirt, that's going to help you in maybe finding a site or help you on your next adventure. So I wanted to share Joe Dirt on there real quick. So Michael, I start off even more basic than that. Sometimes I'm just using my eyes. And again, a lot because here's the thing, Michael was talking about research and looking at maps and those types of things. And those are great. Those are awesome, awesome, awesome resources. But one of the things that I use are these two things right here. And a lot of good sites are going to be found usually near water. If you're looking for a colonial site, and you're looking for a relic site or an older site, usually most of those old home sites are going to be found near some source of water, whether it be a river, whether it be a stream, a creek. Those are the things that you begin to look for. The other thing that I highly suggest is looking for high hilltops in those areas. Because usually most of those guys during those periods, during the 1700s and 1800s, they did not build a house site on a piece of property that they thought was going to flood or could be possibly flooded and so on. So they would have built close to a water source on a higher hill. So you look for those hills, you look for those bluffs, you look for those types of things. And those are usually going to be the best places to look for an older home site. And 9 times out of 10, usually you can find something based on that. A lot of the maps for my area were destroyed. So I don't have the resources that probably a lot of you have, even though my area is probably more historical than a lot of other people. The thing is, I use these to actually help me find sites. And that's the first thing that I begin to look for, is to look for those particular types of areas. And Michael, what do you think about that, what I just said?
You're exactly right. It's, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be on high ground, close to water.
Right.
Especially in your area, it's, there's not as much high ground as there is in my area, but if you find a high hill or a knoll in your area, most of the time, that's where that house site's going to be. If there was one there,
Right.
you always
Now,
want to go there first.
right. And Michael mentioned research too. So guys, one of your main resources that can really help you out are old newspapers. If your library has old newspapers, you can refer to those old newspapers and you can go back and read some of the articles in the 1800s. And that can help you out tremendously. A lot of research can be done through old newspapers, through your library, through reading books, through looking at older maps. There are a lot of apps out there. I know most of you probably know some of those apps, but you can go through and you can find some of those older maps. Some areas have a lot more than others. Just like I just said, I really don't have a lot of maps. So when you see me metal detecting on a site, that's basically because I have looked at it thoroughly. So again, eyes first, look and see what the lay of the land is. That can be your first tell-all sign for what could possibly be there. So again, some of you may have different ways that you look for sites, and I do want you guys to share those in just a few minutes. I'm going to open that up. But the first way that I begin to look for a site is by using my eyes and looking at the lay of the land and what I'm seeing in those particular areas. And that can really help you out tremendously. So, and I know most of you on here are experienced detectorists. But maybe that's something you didn't know. There may be somebody on here that didn't know that either. So again, that can help you in finding older sites. Now, if you're looking for silver coins, silver coins from the late 1800s, early 1900s, you want to go where you know that there were people congregated at, where there were lots of people congregated at. There was a lot of traffic moving through those areas. And a lot of you hunt in old towns, you hunt sidewalks, old curb strips, you hunt where there might be a church nearby, where they might have gathered. You look for maybe an old fairgrounds that might have been around during that period, but you look for those types of areas. So if you're going coin shooting, then those could definitely be some areas that you want to check out for doing that. So that's my suggestion for that. Michael, you got any suggestions for finding silver coins?
Well, I always look for large old trees.
Right.
Um, if they've been there a long time, chances are that they may have sat under them, for shade or and a lot of times that's how you can find the old house sites that used to be there. Look at the old grove of trees in that
Right.
area, and
Right.
that's always a good way to find an old location like that.
Right. And I've made multiple videos. I don't know how many of you have seen those, but I've made multiple videos showing, me being near big old oak trees. Oak trees can be the sure tell sign, especially in my area, that there could have been a house in that area. You can look for daffodils, just plants that just sort of seem out of place, especially in the woods, that don't really match up. That could be the tell-all sign too for an old home site. Michael, you ever look for flowers, different types of flowers and stuff?
I have. There's a site I hunted this past spring, and it was loaded with daffodils. And
Yeah.
I knew I was on the site when I saw those in the spring. So
Right, exactly. Carson Chris has used Chronicling America for old newspaper articles of those areas. Thank you, Carson Chris, for sharing that. I had Bobby Short's comment up there. Local historical books and looking at references. The references can be more detailed. Warning: the reference material may be difficult to find or expensive. Right. So sometimes you have to pay to get some of this information too. And some of you know that. You can go to your state archives and possibly look up some of these things. But of course, that can cost money in some cases. BK says in Pennsylvania, I look for structures that have a field stone foundation. And we're getting to that in just a minute. Digging It Back says he goes to old schools looking for silver coins. Always a great place to go when you're looking for old coins and silver, definitely. Tin Man says historical aerials, eyeballing green and blue feather china, shred scatters, brick scatters, pipe stem pieces, and ironwood tree. Well, you're hitting it all. And I was getting ready to talk about that, Tin Man, but you stole my thunder. But I'm going to show that. I'm going to talk about that in just a second as well. Detect Two Guns says old picnic areas are a good place to detect. Lance says he looks for monkey grass growing in a straight line in the woods is always a dead giveaway. And all of those things are super, super, super ideas. And again, guys, that's why we're on here right now. We're sharing information to help others. And we're trying to, pass out that information to help other people try to find sites maybe in their areas as well. Bobby Short says, get familiar with surveyor notes. So real quick, I'm going to step away here real quick. So I'm going to show y'all a couple of things that I have. And this is sort of what Tin Man was alluding to just a second ago. So all of those are great suggestions, and everybody has some very good ideas. One of the main things I look for when I'm looking for an older site is I look for this. And everybody should know what that is. That is a piece of blue feather dish. And anytime you see that blue feather dish, then you know you're right on target as far as what you're looking for. Because when that shows up, that's the right time period. And usually that's a dead giveaway. There's also another type of dish called Staffordshire slipware, which is from the mid and early 1700s, which could really indicate a good home site. Look for this on the ground. I mean, when you
Mhm.
see this, you know you're in business. Michael, you ever seen any of this before?
Yeah, a lot of times you can walk out in the field and you can judge a site, see, you're on an older site just by looking, what kind of what's laying on the ground out there.
Sure. And Tin Man brought up a good point a minute ago. I also look for brick. Now, now brick can sometimes be tricky, and sometimes dish can be tricky because
Right.
you got to sort of know the age of that dish because you can see some of that just white plain dish, and that might not be that old. That could be early 1900s, mid 1900s, could be the 1930s. So if you're looking for stuff older, then if you see a lot of that dish and you don't see any of this, then that could mean that you're not quite on the oldest site that you could possibly be on. And you're not going to find some of those older finds that you might want to find. So, again, dish is key, brick is key. The brick that has the black speckles in it is what I call it. And usually they're handmade bricks. They have a sort of different look to them too. So that can be a dead giveaway too if you see brick shards laying around all around. Real quick, I'm going to get to some comments, Michael. Let's look at some of these.
Okay.
When I detect the woods, I always look for lilac bushes in central Missouri. Most old houses have them. Good, Joe Dirt. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Lance McElwain says, taught the people over 80 years old. That's a good one, too. And we're going to talk about that. Savannah says, I always look for black glass and oyster shells. And again, the site where Dan and I found that gun is loaded with oyster shells and black glass, that big, thick black glass bottles are always a dead giveaway for an older site. So again, black glass, oyster shells, piles of oyster shells, those are usually really good signs that there was a lot going on in those areas. BK says he's fortunate to have an older brother who's been a land surveyor for 40 years. He has a lot of knowledge where old prop. That's great, BK. Well, a lot of us don't have a land surveyor that we can just go
Right.
to, but that's awesome. Wouldn't that be nice, Michael, if we had a
Yeah,
land surveyor to help us with this?
that would be awesome.
That would be great. Carson Chris says most of my old sites were dirt floor shanties, but had a fireplace. Those fireplaces leave a small pile of rock, 12 to 8 inches tall and 6 to 8 foot long. That's really interesting. And again, Carson Chris lives in a different area than the majority of us. I live on the East Coast. Some of you live in the Midwest. Some of you may live completely out west. Some of you live up north. And we all have different ways that we look for home sites. And again, that's why I wanted to do this show tonight, was to talk about some of those ways that we look for our relic sites. So that is awesome. Thank you, Carson Chris, for sharing that. David Moss says, I'm glad to finally catch a live. I'm new to the hobby. I'm learning. There's a lot of Revolutionary War where I live, especially with Francis Marion. And there's a lot of Francis Marion history in my area too. And I'm a big Francis Marion history buff. I love Francis Marion. Michael knows that very well. He's heard me talk Francis Marion to death, but always chasing Francis Marion, where he went, where he was, and so on. So Francis Marion's always one of my favorites. Tony Maston says, I always look further from the house spot I find for starter homes too. Could have been just a small cabin. Yeah, if there's one home, there's possibly more structures in that area as well. What do you think about that, Michael?
Yeah, most of the time, there is a starter home somewhere in that area.
Yeah,
If a family owned that land for many years, most of the time there is one. And also, it's good to get familiar with the architecture of the older homes. So if you can look at a house that's still standing, you can kind of tell the period it's from, and you'll know that's a good
right,
spot to hunt.
right. Yeah, you can look at the age, and there are plenty of books out there that you guys can get from a library that talk about Southern architecture or Northern architecture or Midwest architecture, whatever it may be. But there are plenty of those types of books out there that can sort of give you an idea about what period those houses were built in, and that can give you an idea of how old the home is too. So that is awesome. Don't Tread on Me says one of the best sites I've ever found was because of one brick sitting on a stone wall covered with moss. No cellar, but was a cabin site. That's right. Sometimes the most obvious things are the things that can help us find a relic site. So again, using these, looking at that ground can be a big, big help in finding a relic site or an old home site. Bobby Short says he's saving this stream, Michael, so he's going to save it for future reference. I would suggest a lot of you do that too. But we're going to share with you some of our tips and some of our ideas for finding some old home sites. JC said, but something led you to those sites where the black glass and oyster shells are. What led you there? Well, I just got through, JC. I don't know if you missed the first part. A lot of what leads me to those sites are these two things right here. I'm looking for places that are near near water sources and places that are usually on a high hill or high bluff, usually near a river, but sometimes away from a river. But again, those are my main things that I focus on because, JC, I don't have a lot of maps in my site that I can refer to. Most of my maps were destroyed during the Civil War from everything before the Civil War. So I don't have those maps. So I've got to rely on my eyes and looking and trying to find those places. So,
Right. Now, like we said, the trees too, even riding down the road, you can ride by a spot and see the big trees and say, man, there was a house right there. I just, I mean, you can tell just riding down the road and passing it, you can tell there was an old house right there. So
exactly, Michael. And JC says he uses the Gaia map, which is good because it does have some older maps that are on it. Usually those are older topographical maps and they will show where those home sites are. But the problem is they only go back so far. And then you gotta refer to something else. And in my case, that something else is going to be my eyes in a lot of cases. So that's why I'm telling you guys, use your eyes, look for those types of things that we've been talking about. Alabama Digger says he looks for natural springs. Definitely. It's a water source. Like I said, anywhere where they would have gotten water from is definitely going to be a site where there could be a home site. So whether it be a river, a creek, a natural spring, all of those can be places where there could be an old home site and people could have gathered during the 1800s. So those are going to be the places that you definitely want to look for in that. Don't Tread on Me, says Tony Maston. That is true. Alabama Digger says there was old activity nearby. Definitely. Carson Chris says the Historical Society papers are amazing and oftentimes have photos from the days of old. Yeah, you can go back and find pictures in some cases. You can actually see what those places look like, in the late 1800s, mid 1800s. There's pictures of some of those places. You can go to those things too as well. So definitely a great way of doing that. Right. Don't Tread on Me, metal detecting. Boots on the ground. You're right. Boots on the ground. That's me right now. Boots on the ground. I go out and I look and, I have a pretty good idea because I'm looking for those particular types of sites, like what I've been saying. So that definitely helps you. Yeah, JC says, thanks. I missed the lead in. That's okay, JC. We're glad you're here, buddy. Thank you for being here tonight. And thanks for being a great supporter. And like I said, we're sharing information on how to find relic sites tonight. Don't Tread on Me says Historic Mapworks has the overlay built right in. Very good. So Historic Mapworks for some of you. Tim Man says, I forgot to mention Bellarmine pieces. You make me nervous. That nice Bartman jug way up on your shelf. Yes, salt glazed jugs. All of those things are things that are beautiful pieces to look for. And those can be dead giveaways for a very, very, very nice site. Lance McElwain says you better wear snake boots in Alabama, especially right now because it's warm and they're there. So Alabama Digger brings up a good one. River crossing, fords, and ferries are guaranteed good sites too. Michael, what do you think about river sites and fords and ferries?
a lot of them were used back to the early 1700s. It's an awesome site, hunting in the river and on the shores where they come up on shore the
Right.
river.
So
So
yeah, there are tons of places that you can hunt that are right on the banks of these rivers. Look for a shallow area.
right,
That's
and
usually a place that
also,
they would have crossed.
oh, we didn't talk about was aerial photos. Some of the aerial photos go back to the early 1900s, and
Right.
they're easy to overlay. And I mean, a lot of the houses are gone in those early 1900s photos. You can look back and if depending on what kind of hunting you're doing, but even those houses from the early 1900s could be 1700s homes that are gone, that you
Right.
didn't know about. So the
Yeah,
aerial photos are good resources too.
definitely, definitely. And so this is another thing that I do when I'm looking for sites is I dig. Think about it like this. You get on a site, you got your metal detector set up, and we're going to talk about setting up the metal detector in just a second. But you got your metal detector set up, and you get over some iron, and you're hearing a whole bunch of iron because that's usually the dead giveaway, right, Michael?
Right.
Right. So we're looking for iron. Once we get over that iron, the best possible thing that you can do at that point, if you're really unsure whether it's an old site or whether it is a newer site, is to dig a piece of that iron. If that iron looks old and it gives off that appearance of being maybe pot iron or flat iron, then more than likely you know that you are on an older site. It just has a certain look to it, that old iron of being in the ground. And Michael knows exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about. But dig a piece of iron if you're unsure. You get over a group of iron, dig it up. See if you can tell how old that iron is, and then base your hunt on what type of iron is laying in the ground. Michael, have you ever done that before?
Yeah. Now I've done that a lot, And some people they don't like to hunt with the iron on or hunt with it turned down, but it's good to turn it up so you can know when you're in the iron hunting a site and when you get out of it how big the site
Right.
is you're hunting. You can get a lot of information listening to that iron, especially initially when you get to a site.
Right. And
Um,
sometimes I know some people that actually carry flags and sort of mark where the iron stops and where it
right,
begins, which can give you a real good layout of how big that structure was. And of course, most of my structures that are so dang big. I mean, these plantations are just loaded with iron, so you can go for days and not get out of an iron patch. And sometimes,
right.
so definitely a way to do it. Um, Surfside Dan says it helps to have a Southern accent. Come on, Dan. So yeah, Dan knows. I love Dan. He's an awesome guy, and I appreciate him being here tonight. But yeah, I've got that Southern accent. I can walk up to any house site. We're going to talk about getting permissions in just a minute, but we're going to run out of time, Michael, if we keep on going like this.
Right.
Tony Maston says, up here in Spotsylvania, logging is so bad that most of the time it's no sign of a house site, so just got to walk and swing. And that's right. You may not see, like what I was saying, you may not see dish on the ground, you may not see brick on the ground, but that metal detector will tell you what's in that ground. And if that metal detector tells you that there's iron and it's scattered all around, you definitely want to stop and take a look and dig a piece of that iron and see what that iron's showing you or telling you. So again, do that. Listen for that iron, dig a piece of that iron, and then determine how old you think that site is. If you get into a situation like that, Tony, that can help you out a ton. I promise you. Don't Tread on Me says, hey, Alabama Digger, 1787 New Jersey copper yesterday, off of a weak but high one-way signal. Awesome. Don't Tread on Me. Congratulations. Congratulations. Alabama Digger says, very nice. He said he thought of your video when he got the signal. Very good. Awesome. James is in the house. James is a great supporter. James, glad to have you in here. And David Frazier says, hey, I found 4 rings at Top Sale today, but they were all junkers. Well, hey, one of those rings could have turned out to be the ring too. So you got to dig them, but that's awesome. You got 4 rings. A ring's a ring. That's what we always say. Don't Tread on Me says, I'm going iron sifting tomorrow. Should be interesting. Very good. Bobby Short says, if hunting river, look at a floodplain maps. It should give you the high spots where the home sites could be. Great suggestion, Bobby. Thanks for sharing that information. So, Michael, we've talked about some of the ways that we look for relic sites. We've gone over a lot of that. You got any other things that you look for that maybe we haven't mentioned so far?
Well, we talked about the river crossings. A lot of folks, if it's just not obvious, where the ford in the river was, if you'll hunt on the shore and you go to finding horseshoes,
Right.
a lot of times that's, where they cross and it's rocky, they'd throw a shoe and you could find horse tack or horseshoes. You're right at that crossing in the river there. And that's another clue you can look for.
Hey, look at that comment, Michael. So Dwayne says he found an iron patch about a year ago in a public park, slowed down and pulled a U.S. belt plate, 2 Virginia buttons, and a script I button, all 10 inches from a park bench. So you think that those iron patches might have something nearby or in them, Michael?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's no telling what was there in that park, in the 1800s. And obviously there was a house site or a camp or something there,
Yeah, definitely. So again, even in a modern park site, some of that iron, that's why, again, you might want to dig it, but some of that iron can be telltale signs of what was actually there and how old it actually was. And Dwayne is a great example, and he just gave us a great example of what could happen. Dwayne, those are great finds. I'd love to I do not have a U.S. belt plate. Michael, you got a U.S. belt plate?
Nope, I don't. I sure don't.
I've come real close. I've seen an eagle breastplate dug right out from underneath me, but I've never had a U.S. belt plate. So I would love to have one of those as well. Lance says that river crossings are the best. Don't Tread on Me metal detectant says, here in Berkshires, I look at topos and look for flat spots. It has pretty good success rate. And I agree. Yeah, you can look for those topo maps can be huge help in trying to find old home sites. Lance says, river crossings is where I found my first and only gold coin. Wow, Lance, that's awesome, dude. Digging a gold coin is just, to me, that's one of my bucket listers for sure. Michael, you got a gold coin?
No, I don't. One of my buddies a few years ago, he was hunting in Virginia at a cavalry camp. He dug a dollar gold coin.
Right. So we've talked about how to find some of these sites. Now let's talk about setting up your machine for relic hunting and for these sites. And of course, we've been discussing this over the last few weeks. When you get on a patch of iron, naturally, you're going to want to increase your reactivity. So you might want to bump your reactivity up and start trying to sift through that iron. The other thing you can do is decide what that soil's like. Of course, if it's highly mineralized, you may want to make some adjustments to your machine. If it's got a lot of moisture to it or it's wet, you may want to go, I'm specifically talking about the XP Deus 2 at this point, but you might want to go to the general program because it's got wet soil to it. What are some things that you do, Michael, once you get on a relic site? What do you set up on your machine? Let's talk about that for a few minutes.
Well, lately I've been running full tones. I like to run, I've been running high square with the fast program, and that I think that's a great program in the iron. And I know you've run it, and I have run pitch in the fast as well in the past. So I just like fast or sensitive full tones in the iron,
Okay. All right. So again, we look at the amount of iron that's in a site, right, Michael?
Right.
We adjust the reactivity based on the amount of iron. and then we start hunting it. We look at what the soil content's like, whether it's highly mineralized, whether it's wet, whether, whatever. And then we are looking at setting up our XP Datus 2 based on the soil type, based on the amount of iron, based on sensitivity. We may look, if it's a high EMI area, we might adjust the sensitivity a little bit. We try to, get rid of as much of that EMI as we can, and so on. Anything else you do to your machine once you've done that?
I like to start out at 2 or 2.5, and then if the
Okay.
iron really increases, I'll bump it up to 3. I rarely do I go over, I'll go into 4 on it, but most of the time I start out around 2.5, and I adjust it from there. If there's less iron there, I'll cut it down to get a little bit more depth. If there's
Right.
more iron, I'll go up to 3.
Right. Yeah. And so again, once you get out of that iron, like Michael said, you might want to turn that reactivity down and look for deeper targets. There are so many different things that you can adjust on the Datus 2 that can help you in a relic site. And some of us know how to do that. Some people may not. So that's why we're talking about it, because anybody that's new to the Datus 2 might want to adjust those machines according to those sites. So again, lots of things you can do with the Datus 2 to adjust those things to try to help you out. And there are many different programs. And Michael mentioned a couple of those programs. I like fast and I like sensitive full tones. I like hunting with the high square option. I love that. I love hunting with pitch, but I also love hunting with full tones now with the high square option, which I have used it in iron. I hope to be using it real soon on a real relic site. I have used it testing it, and I really like what it was showing me. I did dig a couple of targets at my dad's house, and he's got a ton of iron in his yard. So, and it performed really well, and it really hit on those targets, and they sound really, really sweet. But fast and sensitive full tones are my 2 right now. Some of you may have some that you prefer. General seems to be one that a lot of people like. I love Deep High Conductor. Now, I haven't used Deep High Conductor yet with the new update, but Deep High Conductor was one of my go-to programs before this last update. So those are probably the 4 that I lean on the most. And I know some people love Park, but I've never really used Park for relic hunting, but I've seen a lot of success for some people using the Park program. So again, there are a lot of different options that you can do with the Datus 2 to help you out on some of those relic sites. And again, Michael mentioned sensitive full tones and fast. Those are the 2 that we use the most on our relic sites. Michael, you got anything else you can add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I've used General. If the ground is got a lot of moisture in it, and it's worked well, and it seems to quiet the machine down some. If if you're hunting in that area, I think you get less ground feedback with General. So if you got a kind of a mineralized ground,
Right.
I've run General in it and
Right.
had good success. So
Tony Maston mentioned something just a minute ago. He said, "Hey, I dug a perfect CS tongue today," and he's hoping to go back and find the wreath. Oh, wow. That would be amazing. Tony, if you find that, send that to me. Okay. I would love to see that. You can either post it to my Facebook group, Southern Relic Adventures, or you can send me an email. I'd love to see that because I love putting you guys' finds up. And that goes for everybody on here. If you find something really good in the next few weeks or something maybe you found in the past, let me recognize you. I want to share you guys' finds at the beginning of the show. So I love doing that because we're all part of one big metal detecting family. And I love being able to show that for you guys. So again, share those finds with me. Love to show them off and give you credit for some of these great finds. Alabama Digger says, one thing I've noticed, if a spot is abnormally beautiful, it's most likely had old activity on it. Don't know why, but it makes sense. That's true. Yeah. Old grove of oak trees, wide open field. Hey, that's a pretty sight. But you're right, Alabama Digger. A lot of those places do seem like they're really good looking sites. James Bazell says, I now live in the great Northwest, about 40 miles north of Seattle. No relics anywhere near me. I hunted a small part today with the Deus too, and I got some clad, but it's still fun. That's right, James. That's what it's all about. Whether you're digging clad, whether you're digging rings, whether you're digging toy cars like I've done on the beach, or whether you're out in an old historical site, it's just about getting out there. And that's what makes it so fun. And that's why we all enjoy this hobby. It's about getting out there and finding things. So kudos to you, James. Thank you for being here. David Moss says, walk in the woods in the spring, look for daffodils. Surfside Dan says, Tony, he hopes you find the rest of that wreath. I hope he does too, because I want to see it. Don't tread on me. Metal Detecting says reactivity is the button I play with the most. If I get on a good side, I use all of them 1 through 5. That's a great idea. Again, that's the beauty of the XP Deus 2 is you can go back and you can hunt a site over and over and over again, especially if you got permission to hunt it over and over again. But you can set it up totally differently the next time you go out and hunt it. And that's what makes it so special is you can set up all those different variables as well. So we've got, trying to make sure I get everything. Lance says 2 is plenty fast for me. I use 2. I swing a little slower and still get good depth. Guys, you'll be amazed. I mean, even on the beach, if you set it up on 2, you're still gonna get good depth. The Deus 2 is not lacking on depth on the beach, on the land, regardless, even at that reactivity of 2. So you can get away with 2 for sure. Yeah, Tony, we hope you find it. And again, share that with me as well. BK says, for corn shooting, I look for older churches. Most have a cornerstone with a date on it, and somewhere close by, usually there is a picnic grove. And he's exactly right, especially for a lot of these southern churches down here. You're going to see those things. Dwayne says, any tips for distinguishing between big iron targets and smaller ones? Do you know of any Deus 2 settings that would ignore nails but sound off on horseshoe size targets and larger? Michael, you want to answer that question?
Well, I mean, you should be able to adjust your discrimination, and that you should be able to still hear the larger iron targets if you play around with your discrimination, and you could get rid of the nails. Most of the time, the larger iron signals, you're still going to get a good tone on those, right, as well as it's flat iron or.
You could adjust the audio response maybe a little bit as far as depth wise to help you. I mean, that might help some. I think the new audio setting that they have now, the audio filter, that might help some too, Dwayne. I haven't played around with the new audio filter that much, other than I have turned it up to 1 on my Relic program, and I found it to clean up some of those signals. But I have heard some people say when you start adjusting that audio filter and you go up above 1, that sometimes it doesn't make the signal sound as good. Michael, what do you think about the audio filter? Maybe would helping Dwayne out on this.
In iron, I think we've used it at 1, but we hadn't really went any higher than that. And I don't know that I would hunting in iron, but more open areas, you can raise it up, or beach, but hunting in iron, I think 1 does help sometimes.
Right, definitely. So those would be some things that I would experiment, Dwayne. I'm not saying that that's going to solve that problem or help you in that situation, but you can try those things, and I think that might help some. So try it out. Let me know what you think, and come back on here next weekend or next Friday night and let us know. And Dwayne gave us a great donation. Thank you, Dwayne. I appreciate that so much. We really, really, really appreciate you being on here and sharing your information with everybody, because I know that you are an excellent hunter and you're using the Deus 2. So definitely thank you for being here. Surfside Dan, and and Dan's right too. Raise the coil to avoid the nails, but pick up the bigger iron. That's exactly true. Surfside Dan, thanks for sharing that. And I have done that in some cases. So again, Surfside Dan's exactly right. You could raise the coil slightly, and you'll be able to pick up the bigger iron underneath some of those nails. But most of that big iron, which Dan surely knows, because that's why Dan dug that gun. Most of that big iron is going to pick up pretty easy with the Deus 2, and you're going to hear it loud and clear for sure. 10 Man says, I use fast on the Deus 1, but on the Deus 2, I struggle with cancel or sound with fast. Sensitive full tone seems easier to sort out the trash. That might be your your go-to program in some of that modern trash is using sensitive full tones. It can help because and it really all depends on the audio. Yeah, Michael, what would you suggest for 10 Man here?
Yeah, I mean, if he still wants to run fast, I like that the high square and full tones there. It sounds good, and you can, that helps. Listening to the the modern trash,
Right.
doing that.
And
But I mean, it's just you can hear. I think you can hear the modern trash more and determine what it is in full tones. I really
yeah,
do.
I think you can too. I think full tones gives you more descriptive audio in that case. So he's probably right with sensitive full tones. It is going to probably work a little easier for him in that trash. And I think it gives you more descriptive audio and can give you better feedback. So again, thank you, 10 Man, for sharing that. David Moss says, look for larger iron pieces at the base of trees as a sure sign that someone has hunted there and they found the iron. That's true. I can't tell you how many times I've been into sites and there's iron stacked up beside trees that people have dug. So yeah, you'll know that was probably a good site if they started stacking up the iron. So you may want to slow down, but maybe they missed
Another
something.
another tip, really here in the South too. If if you're riding by a field, a field that you can hunt, if you've ever noticed a clump of trees or a grove of trees in the middle of a field,
Right.
the chances are, especially in the South, they had family cemeteries. It might be one or two plots.
Right.
And the farmers, of course, they'll stay, to respect the grave sites. They would just, plow around it. So,
Right. Yeah.
of course, you're not going to hit you're not going to metal detect the cemetery, but most of the
Right.
time they were behind house sites, So
Right.
somewhere in
Exactly.
that field there was a house site, most likely.
Yeah,
So,
and I put up a video earlier this week, and it showed a cemetery, and somebody said, "You're not detecting in a cemetery," and no, but you got to remember these cemeteries they're usually really small family
right,
cemeteries, and they're around other home sites as well.
right.
So no, I do not detect in a cemetery. So if you saw that video and you thought I was detecting in the cemetery, I wasn't detecting in the cemetery. So I would never do that. I don't want to do that. I'd be scared to death. Those ghosts would come after me or something. How about you, Michael?
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, I'm superstitious like that. So I would never do that. Don't tread on me, metal detecting. It says, my rule number one when returning to a good site must use different settings. And again, that goes back to what I just said a few minutes ago. The Deus 2, you can go back and hunt it so many different ways. You could set up different settings. You could use different coil sizes. And you're going to find some stuff that you missed maybe the first time you hunted it by using some of those different settings and maybe even using some of the different coil sizes as well. Those things can help you in those sites. Don't tread on me. Says takes about 100 square nails to get one good target. Well, those square nails, some of those square nails can be tough. They really can. But I really like the update, and I think they've done a good job with eliminating some of those nails. You can still dig a nail, and I'm not going to say I won't dig any more nails. I'm going to dig nails for sure, but I do think that the update has solved some of that issue. Now, if you go to sensitive full tones and you're using that old filter, you might dig a few more nails. But using fast and using that 0.71 filter, I don't think I'm digging quite as many nails as I was digging before, Michael. What do you say about that?
Right. I think it's calmed it down quite a bit. I mean, like you said, sensitive full tones, you still dig a few more nails, but you could also dig a few more non-ferrous targets too in a site if you've hunted it with fast, it would, and you think you've hunted it out, it might pay you to go back with sensitive full tones. You may pull another non-ferrous target out or two.
Right. I call sensitive full tones the sweeper. That's what
Right.
I refer to that program as, the sweeper program. Go back in and sweep up all the stuff that you might have missed using fast and using some other programs. And I think sensitive full tones works extremely well in that situation. Carson Chris says that he's picking up items at 10 to 13 inches where my Equinox bottomed out at around 9. That's great to hear, Carson Chris. And again, the Deus 2 is a deep machine, guys. It just performs really well. And Modern Trash, you might even want to try that dive program in Modern Trash, believe it or not. Give it a shot if you are hunting in Modern Trash. Lance McElwain says lower sensitivity and higher audio response help reduce clicks and pops on smaller iron. Very good, Lance. Thanks for sharing that. Rachel is in the house. Rachel, glad to have you. We're getting ready to sign off, but we're glad you're here. And you can go back and check out the replay, but we're going to be here for at least another 4 or 5 minutes at least. And but check out the replay. We're glad you're here tonight and so on. Yeah. Don't tread on me. Says digging in those cemeteries is bad juju. That's right. You don't mess in a cemetery for sure. Dwayne says here in Virginia, we find mortar shell fragments near trees and fence rows because the old timers didn't want to carry partial shells out of the field. Wow. Yeah, I'd be thrilled to find some of those old mortar shells and stuff like that. But that's really, really cool. Surfside Dan says, yeah, he's gone in and helped find grave sites for people using the GPR. And Dan and I hopefully are going to be getting together in the fall. We got some places we're going to check out with the GPR. And hopefully XP is going to have out the Extreme Hunter, which I'm going to be using as well. And maybe we're going to find some really cool stuff. So we'll see how that goes on as well. Chris says, hey, Rachel. And we're glad to have Rachel in the house right now. So, Michael, anything we missed tonight? What else can we say about the Deus 2 and setting it up for relic hunting? Anything else we need to tell everyone? I think we've talked about how we use, what programs we use. We've talked about using different culls, going back and hunting it with different settings and different programs, adjusting reactivity, and then, looking at those things. Is there something else that we need to tell everyone before we sign off tonight?
Right. I mean, if you go and hunt it with a 9-inch coil with the same settings, it would pay you to go back with 11-inch or the 13-inch because, as well as I do, we can go back and they'll pull a few more targets depending on, just running a different size coil, with the same program. So,
right.
It's just, you may think a site is, you're not going to find anything you've hunted to death, but, of course that gun is a perfect example.
Yeah. That gun is a classic example. And look, we got Surfside Dan on here, and I can't tell you how many times I've probably walked over that dang gun. And here comes Surfside Dan, who dug it by accident, really, because he thought it was a non-ferrous target, but he dug it and it turned out to be a dang gun. So, that's the thing. You can go back and hunt a site all kinds of different ways, especially when you find it, and using different calls, using different programs, using different settings. And those sites usually are never hunted out when you go and you approach it that way, because they can give up some really cool stuff. That's probably one of the best finds off of that site. I dug a couple pieces of silver. I dug a nice, beautiful large cent, off of that site. I dug multiple buttons off of that site, Civil War buttons, all kinds of stuff. And Dan comes in and digs a gun, and I've been hunting that site for 4 years. So that'll tell you that, you can go back and you can find things by using different settings, different coils, different programs, so on. So
Right,
always
especially
keep that in mind.
if they move some dirt in an area like they're going to develop it, you may have hunted that site 100 times, but if they move a little dirt, you better go back and hunt it because that could have unmasked some targets.
Right,
So
definitely. And Dwayne says, "Don't forget about that LiDAR video." And I know, and I look, and we are, and I'm gonna get together with Dan, and we're gonna put together that LiDAR video for you guys, and we're gonna probably do a live stream when we do it. So when we do it, we better have a bunch of people in here because this is gonna be one that you're gonna want to see. So. We'll definitely, hopefully, be doing that as we get closer and closer to fall, and people are starting to think about relic hunting, and they're starting to get into that, and they're looking for a way to help them. LiDAR can help you, especially in a lot of places that have. Now, I will say this before, and Michael knows this too. Some places really don't have good LiDAR maps, but we are going to talk a little bit about LiDAR, what you're looking at when you're looking at a LiDAR map, where you can go to find those things. That's going to be the main focus of that video when we do it. But if we do it, I need to have a big crowd on here for sure. And we'll be doing that hopefully in the coming months. Again, I've started back work. Most of you guys know I teach school and I coach as well. So I'm going to be really busy over the next couple of months, but I'm still going to do our live streams. I'm still going to be putting up videos on YouTube. Every chance I get to hunt on the weekend, I'm going to be putting those things up. Michael's going to be helping me out, assisting me in some of those cases. So I'm so happy to have Michael with me as well. So, but we are going to be still doing our regular shows as much as we can. If for some reason we don't do a show, it will always be posted that, hey, we're not having a show on Friday night. But Friday night, 7:30, always our time. So definitely make sure you're tuning in. Tell your friends, get more people on here. Hopefully you've hit that like button tonight, and hopefully you're a subscriber to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And we're trying to grow and get as much information out there to you guys and help you guys have successful hunts whenever you go out and hunt. Michael, anything else you want to share before we sign off?
I hope everybody has a good weekend and get out and find some awesome relics to show on the show next Friday. Hopefully they'll have some pictures of some good stuff that they found. So.
Right. Yeah. So again, share those finds. I'm going to put my email link up here too for you guys that would like to share some of your finds. And it is Waccamaw Artifact Recovery at gmail.com. So there it is. If any of you would like to, I'll put it up there. For any of you that would like to send me your finds, we'll feature your finds, feature your name. Make sure you tell me your name too, please. And tell me what machine you were using, where you found it. I'm going to say where, but general area where you live. And, tell me what it is. I may not know, believe it or not. I know a lot of finds, but some of them I may not. So if you're going to share a find with me, give me some more background information to it. And I would love to share your finds on our live stream at the beginning of our show next weekend. So again, if you're interested in doing that, there's my email, WaccamawArtifactRecovery@gmail.com. And I'll be glad to get your finds up on our live stream and sharing that with you. Surfside Dan says a lot of good info tonight, which there was. We passed out a lot of info tonight, Michael. And hopefully this has helped someone. A lot of you are experienced metal detectors, and some of you may know this stuff, but there's probably somebody that's going to watch this on a replay or somebody that did tune in tonight that didn't know some of these things. And this is going to help them become a more successful hunter in their area and help them out with finding some great things, because that's what it's all about, is getting out there, finding and enjoying enjoying the outdoors. So again, I appreciate each and every one of you tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in every Friday night. We've got we've got some great people. Joe Dirt says, Michael, this show is the fastest hour ever. And that's a compliment. And thank you so much, Joe Dirt. And again, like Joe Dirt says, quick, hit that like. Definitely do that. We appreciate each and every one of you. You guys are amazing. And I love helping you guys out. Please, please, please share the live, share the channel with other friends, people that are interested in metal detecting. We're trying to grow, get this channel up and going. I'll bring more information as far as XP metal detectors coming in the near future too, as hopefully we're going to be seeing that Extreme Hunter real soon. So I'm looking forward to sharing some information on that as well. So again, Lance says, great show. Thank you so much. Tony Masson said, good luck swinging to everyone this weekend. Thank you so much for everyone that donated to the channel tonight, either through a super chat or a super thanks. Those are always greatly appreciated. They go straight back into the channel and helps bring us this live stream every Friday night at 7:30. So again, tune in next week. Michael, any parting words before we head out of here?
I hope everybody has a good night and a wonderful weekend.
I hope everybody has a wonderful night. And again, guys, I appreciate you. Michael appreciates you. We love doing this and bringing you this content. And we look forward to seeing your great finds and seeing each and every one of you next Friday night at 7:30. Be here. Michael, you take care. Rest of you guys, take care. We'll see you on our next adventure. And don't forget, tune in next Friday night, 7:30. We will be here. So again, thank you, James Lettner. Gold coins for all. There you go. Don't tread on me. That's a good karma right there. Share that. Don't tread on me, metal detecting. Thank you so much. You guys take care. Have a great night. Michael, stay with me. We'll see everyone else later on. Take care, guys. We're out of here.
All right.